series is coordinated by the Aging Initiative, which is an NIA-funded initiative that bridges the expertise and leadership of two powerhouses for research on multiple chronic conditions, the Healthcare Systems Research Network, and the Claude D. Older American Independent Centers, or what we call the Pepper Centers. The Aging Initiative is led by principal investigators Ana Quiñones of Oregon Health and Science University and co-PI Dr. Barrett from Duke University and the Durham VA. My name is Leah Hanson, and I am co-lead of the Aging Initiative Career Development Core, along with Heather Whitson. I am a Senior Director of Neuroscience Research and a Senior Investigator at HealthPartners Institute. Heather Whitson is Professor of Medicine and Ophthalmology and the Director of the Duke University Aging Centers. We are also joined by two members of the Aging Initiative Insights and Perspectives from Patients and carePartners panel, or IP4, Rosie Bartel and Janice Tufte, who will be providing more background related to the stakeholder impact of the MCC Scholars Program applications. Due to the number of registrants for today's webinar, we have placed phone lines on mute to reduce audio feedback. However, we welcome and encourage audience participation using the Q&A function. If you have technical or logistical questions, we ask that you submit those in the chat to Ollie DeRochers, Research Coordinator for the Aging Initiative, who'll be monitoring the discussion. We are recording this session and we'll be posting the recording to the Aging Initiative website in the coming days, so stay tuned. So let's jump in. There you can see Heather and I, who are collating our Career Development Core. I will be presenting the first part of the information, and then Heather will jump in. So the Aging Initiative, as we mentioned, is our goal is to bridge the HCSRN with the Pepper Centers to create a national resource to nurture and advance research in multiple chronic conditions. You can see in the map the states where we have HCSRN sites or Pepper Center sites or both. So we really are spread across a large amount of the country. Our efforts really are to lay the foundation. We want to address the knowledge gaps that exist regarding the health and healthcare of this understudied patient population. Next slide. So why multiple chronic conditions? So the most common chronic condition experienced by older adults is multimorbidity, or the existence or coexistence of multiple chronic conditions. And the vast majority of persons aged 55 and years and older have more than two or more chronic medical conditions. And these patients are frequently excluded from participation in clinical trials through the inclusion-exclusion criteria because of these chronic conditions. So there's really a gap in knowledge. And we know that older adults with MCCs are the highest utilizers of healthcare, and that a small percent of Medicare beneficiaries, 12% that have 6 or more chronic condition, account for more than 40% of total Medicare spending and spending on hospitalizations, and nearly 70% of post-acute Medicare costs. So it's a really important understudied population. The next slide shows you the organization of the Aging Initiative. So Anna and Barrett Bowling as our co-PIs. Our steering committee, we have 3 cores, and our IP4 panel is really involved in all that we do. Heather and I co-lead our Career Development Core. We also have a core around methods, measures, and data development, and a core around research innovation, translation, and dissemination. And we work together across our cores to deliver the curriculum from the MCC Scholars Program. So what is the MCC Scholar Program? On the next slide, this program, we've been doing this for a number of years. The goal is to create a cohort of emerging leaders that have a commitment to pursue research interests related to multiple chronic conditions. This year, we will be selecting up to 16 scholars for the program. The program involves attending an in-person workshop, and the workshop will be held May 6th through 8th of next year, and it is in conjunction with the annual meeting of the Pepper Centers. After that kickoff in-person session, Over the subsequent year, the scholars participate in 6 webinars. They're career development conferences, and they they over they contain information over 4 areas, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on than one of the next slides. In addition to the 4 curricular elements, scholars participate in a mentoring program. They're paired with scholars and senior scientific members of the Aging Initiative, as well as members of our IP4 panel based on shared research interests. And the MCC Scholar Program aims to create and foster this nationwide community and mentoring network to extend and sustain research in multiple chronic conditions. Next slide. To date, the MCC Scholars Program has delivered more than 80 webinars. We've held 7 scholars workshops, so this will be our 8th cohort of scholars. And we've trained 86 early career investigators across 7 cohorts so far, and really from a wide range of interests, skill sets, and perspectives. The curricular elements are located on the next slide. We like to visualize them as, we call it the stool. So the 3 legs, the first being significant of multiple chronic conditions, the second being resources and tools for MCC researchers, and the third enabling meaningful patient and caregiver engagement. And really the top of our stool is this general career development for early career investigators. So we'll have content from each of these 3 areas throughout the kickoff meeting and the year following that. Next slide. An example of an experience you might have as an MCC Scholars. So in May, an in-person workshop. In June, we might have a methods topic. In the summer, a career development topic. Fall, a significance of MCCs. We hold a peer mentoring scholars reunion every late fall, where we bring all the scholars of cohorts together. And we also do resource swaps, usually in the spring. So you can see an example of what a participation might include. We don't have these topics tied in yet, and we typically solicit our scholars for ideas of what would be most important to them in these different areas. So again, in-person meetings, 6 webinars, and then monthly mentor programs is what it would mean to participate if you were selected to be an MCC scholar. And now I'm going to hand it off to Heather to talk a little bit more detail about our mentoring.
All right. So in addition to the sort of didactic curriculum, we've also built a mentoring program as part of the year-long MCC Scholar experience. So the nice thing about the mentoring program is that it's built so that you're getting mentoring from several different sources at the same time. So you'll be placed into small groups with your peer mentors. So part of those sort of regular meetings with the peer mentor with the small group is mentoring through your other scholars. But in addition, each group is paired with at least one of the IP4 advisors, and you'll hear more from a couple of our IP4 advisors in a moment. But IP4, again, stands for the Insights and Perspectives from Patients and Care Partners panel. So this is a unique part of the program. One of our curricular elements is to really train MCC researchers how to meaningfully engage with patients and care partners from soup to nuts in your research design and conduct and interpretation of results. And then in addition, each of those small groups has a scientific advisor. So these are folks who are senior investigators that are affiliated with the Aging Initiative. Next slide. So this sort of shows what a sort of prototype of your your mentoring experience may look like. So Leah showed you sort of what a year may look like in terms of the curriculum. This is what the year may look like in terms of your mentor meetings. So as you can see, May kicks off with our in-person meeting where we all gather together at the start of the program in the DC or Bethesda area. But then following that, you'll have these hour-long, in most of the months, an hour-long opportunity to meet with your mentor group. And it works out to being about 4 meetings that are required, and then 2 of them are sort of optional office hours or drop-in meetings with the scientific advisors or the IP4 advisors. The discussions here are scholar-led, so you and your peer mentor group will sort of decide and be in charge of driving the agenda, raising topics or questions. And one of the things that we've really tried to do, I'd say, with the whole program is create a time balance, recognizing that this program doesn't come with effort support for you, and your time is very valuable. So what we've tried to build is a rich experience that includes a lot of sort of meaty topics and is responsive to your needs and career stage, but at the same time is respectful for your time. And so it works out to no more than an hour or 2 a month that you're sort of participating in the program. Next slide. And this is some of the feedback that we've gotten about the mentoring program. As you can see, is our feedback has been really positive, and in general, scholars we solicit feedback every year so that we can continue to iteratively make it better. But in general, this has been a really popular and well-received part of the program. And here, some of our past scholars are listing some of the what I would call sort of tangible things that they feel like they've gotten out of this small group. So everything from feedback on their AIMS pages, pointing them toward grant mechanisms, speaking opportunities, and then learning some of the tips and tools to really help them take action on being able to use patient partnership or care partner partnership incorporated into their research program. Next slide. And then, of course, there are a lot of intangible benefits to the program. Some of it is just the camaraderie and the friendships, and in some cases, now that we've been doing this 7 or 8 years, it's been really gratifying to see several funded applications come out of collaborations that were sparked by the program and that initiated by scholars that got to know each other through the program and really used their network to create grant applications. In addition, I think the visibility that this affords you to some of the senior leaders across the country in aging research, interaction with NIA representatives. We intentionally pair the in-person meeting with the Pepper Center annual meeting because it's always held in the Bethesda, DC area to make it possible for our NIA program officers to attend. And then exposure to the resources that come with both the Pepper Center and the HCSRN, and increasingly with the other networks that you all are involved in. So I'll show you in a moment, there is no requirement that you have to be affiliated with one of those networks. So if you're not part of a Pepper Center or you're not part of the HCSRN, that's okay. And in fact, bringing in people that have other affiliations, whether it's VA or other academic programs, has been another strength of the program. Next slide. Okay, so who should be applying to be a scholar? So we do ask that applicants for eligibility have an MD, PhD, or equivalent degree. Take that very broadly. Basically, it's a doctorate in something that is health related. And we have really enjoyed the very multidisciplinarity of the program and the cohort that we've assembled. So you should have some evidence that shows that you're committed to research in a field that is relevant to multiple chronic conditions or aging. If you have done work specifically related to multiple chronic conditions, comorbidity, multimorbidity, absolutely you want to highlight that in your application. If you haven't, it's still important to tell us how what you are doing is relevant to those topics and how you want to use this training in multiple chronic conditions to enrich what you're doing. Preference is given to applicants who are in the earlier career stages. So our sort of target zone is people who have not yet received an R01 or tenure. But we would accept applications from people who have received these milestones very recently. We do ask that you be able to commit to attend the in-person meeting, just because that is an important sort of kickoff element of the program. And then also that you can commit to attending the 6 webinars in the scholarship year. You're once an MCC scholar, always an MCC scholar. So you're welcome to attend more webinars in your year, and you're welcome to attend webinars in the future. And many of our prior scholars do show up for the webinars in years after their scholarship year. We also ask that you do commit to attending those monthly sort of or nearly monthly meetings with your small group. And again, those generally have been very rewarding and people want to attend them. Also, you all can sort of work together in that small group to try to place them at times that are convenient for you. And then the other thing that we really would encourage is this is a program that is all built, a big part of the program is the networking. So if you're somebody who is looking for collaborations and looking to sort of build bridges and networks to other people interested in MCCs, this is the kind of program that is for you. And as I said, you don't have to be affiliated with the HCSRN or an OAIC or Pepper Center. Next slide. All right, so here is the way that you can apply. Just like I said, we try to be very mindful of your time in the program itself. We also try to be very mindful of your time in the application. So this application is pretty short and sweet. We will ask for some institutional and demographic information, your bio sketch, and then it is just short responses to a few sort of prompts, 400 words or less. But it is useful to put some thought into them. As I said, if you have done work in the area of multiple chronic conditions or multimorbidity, comorbidity, please tell us about that. Please also make it very clear if you have in the past worked with carePartners or patients in your research teams, it's good to explain that prior experience that you have. And if you haven't had that prior experience, again, make it very clear why you want to, and how this is something that, this is a major part of our curriculum. So we want to be sure that that's something that you can discuss either your experience in that area in the past, or at least demonstrate your commitment to learning about that as part of the program. It's also really important for us to hear how participation in a program like this is going to contribute to your long-term goals and career plans. All right, next slide. Okay, so this is how we base. I will say that in every year that we've done this, we have had way more qualified applications than we've had slots to give. And so one thing that I would say is that if you have applied before, do not let it be a deterrent to applying again. So if you've applied before and were not accepted into the program, please understand that many of the scholars who get accepted to the program are being accepted not on their first time applying to the program. We do like to see some evidence of commitment or productivity in an area that's relevant to multiple chronic conditions. And then the other thing that we really do try to do is come up with sort of a balanced cadre, so that each group of 16 or so applicants that go through the program get the experience of diverse backgrounds, disciplines, people and also geography in different institutions. Your application will be reviewed by scientific reviewers as well as IP4 panelists. So be mindful of that too, that you're putting together a 400-word response that is going to be read and reviewed by both audiences. And then next slide. And with that, I am going to introduce two of our excellent IP4 panelists. So again, IP4 stands for Insights and Perspectives from Patients and Partners. Rosie Bartel and Janice Tufte are going to be speaking to us. Rosie is a widow, mother, grandmother, and educator. In August of 2009, she underwent a total knee replacement that developed into a MRSA staph infection. From that single healthcare acquired infection, she's undergone 58 surgeries, over 200 hospitalizations, more than 100 blood transfusions, 15 incidents of septic shock, and a right leg amputation, 6 inches above the knee, and finally a total hip amputation with the removal of some of her pelvic bone. So Rosie continues to battle this MRSA infection in her body and is really driven to share her story of survival. And she uses her story to co-design with medical professionals, researchers, future research, and to advocate for patients and their care partners in all research that we do. Janice is a patient collaborator in research who works on multiple research projects and advisory panels, and she strives to help improve health systems and services. With a focus on addressing disparities and the social determinants of health, Janice is also involved locally, nationally, and internationally with evidence-based medicine and quality measures and guidelines. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Janice and Rosie.
Next slide, please. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a member of the IP4 organization, or the Institute's Aging Initiative IP4 group. And that group is made up of patients and care partners with diverse backgrounds, experiences, and conditions. Today, also another care partner is or patient and care partner is with us, and his name is Reggie Barnes, and he's here to observe. Now, Reggie is from Southern California. Janice is from Seattle. I'm from Wisconsin, a little town in Wisconsin. So we're located across the United States and serve as a resource to the MCC scholars during their program. The aim of the program is to create patient-focused researchers that prioritize the goals of the individuals receiving care. And these individuals usually have multiple chronic conditions. Next slide. The IP4 will be reviewing applications to assess the potential for impact into the lives of patients and families. I want to describe how our research might be done and how this might impact the relevance to individuals living with multiple chronic conditions. Each application is scored, as Heather said, by 2 IP4 reviewers. And what we'll be looking at and commenting on in the scoring will be based on the following criteria. To what extent does the applicant indicate the potential to positively impact the quality of life for people living with multiple chronic conditions? Now, this might be not something you want to learn about or want to become more involved with, or you might already be doing this, and you might have ways of sharing that during this process. Make sure that you put everything you're doing or want to do in this application, because the viewers can only see your words and your comments, and that's how we score. And I have to tell you that the weight of the patient scores, the IP4 reviewers, is just as strong as the weight of the scientific people. So it's an equal. There's 2 and 2, so it's an equal review. Janice is going on the next slide was going to start telling you about how we do this review. It's all yours, Janice.
Thank you, Rosie, and nice to see you, Reggie. I'm Janice Tufte from Seattle, Washington, and I have been an IP4 member. We changed the name, but an IP4 member since the inception, as has Rosie, and we've added some new individuals this last year. So what IP4 reviewers, what we're looking for when we look at your application, we're looking for a description of your experience, if you've had that, regarding patients, family, care partner members. So, and often people don't have experience. And to be honest, some of the best reviews I have given, and I'm not because, well, I don't know, I'm rating my own reviews, but really have been around how individuals might envision us fitting into their research going forward. They actually have not had the experience. It might be a data project where they really didn't incorporate the patient and family care partner voice, but they have stated very well in their application how this could appear and how it could be. So acknowledgement of the importance of the patient and care partner voice in your research agenda, and that this is something, if you're not familiar with, you might want to go to somewhere like the Patient-Centered Outcomes Research Institute, PCORI, to just look up in your area of expertise how perhaps some of the research has with patients and family and care partners has benefited their research, and you can use for examples or some word verbiage there if you're not familiar, and how your work, if it's successful, would benefit the lives of people with MCCs and their care partners. As Rosie mentioned in the last slide, how it might, how it relates and how it could be actionable. Next slide, please. So this is a diagram that shares us at the center, and this is around some of the mentoring, right? So the mentoring program started last year, and with the IP4 members, there's one or two IP4 members with a scientific expert, a senior investigator, and then a mentor. We're all assigned to each other, and each patient partner co-ad or whatever dyad might have three MCC scholars to it. So basically, we can assist you in identifying opportunities to improve care and outcomes. Sometimes you may be an expert in a certain area, but hearing that patient voice, like the story that Rosie shared, or for myself, who has had multiple hospitalizations around digestive issues and has advanced arthritis, if that's your area of expertise, you might want to talk to us or send us an email regarding how we could be, how we might be able to help identify opportunities. And if you're mentored with the certain mentors you're mentored with, they definitely can share with you some nuances that you may not have thought about before. So along with that, the mentoring is training and supporting the new scientists who come aboard and dedicated to studying multiple chronic conditions. And I noticed somebody in chat had mentioned that they were not published, but your work that you have done perhaps carries, it does carry just as much weight as publishing. Today, there's a lot of publishing going on. It's harder to publish. And your publications aren't all, we would definitely not, it's not the only thing we would look at. So facilitate research of high value to patients and providers. And this, I feel, is really kind of the crutch of it, because we're able to share what is high value to patient partners. If it's not our own personal experience, we definitely, all of us are seasoned patient partners or care partners, and we do interact and connect with and collaborate with many other people. And two of the IP4 members have gone forward and are working on research projects with individuals, either as an advisor, an advisory council, or the research project itself. So you may find that there'll be an opportunity for connection and collaboration within the IP4 once you have been assigned your mentors. Next slide, please. I'm not sure who does this, Lee or Heather.
This is back to you, Heather.
All right. So thank you, Rosie and Janice. So the applications are due on Halloween, and we will notify scholars of acceptance by December 22nd. And just as a reminder, there is the required in-person meeting, which has been scheduled for May. So that's May 6th through 8th. Next slide. And there's a few links there where you can find more information. And Ollie DeRochers is our amazing behind the scenes staff that supports the program. Next slide. We're getting to the end here. Yes, so some frequently asked questions that I'll hit on, and then we're going to open it up for your questions. And I see that we already have some in the Q&A. We'll start with those, and feel free to add additional questions there. And I see Ollie also just put the link to the website in the chat. So we've sort of already addressed this question about, does your research have to be about older adults aging? So it does not have to be necessarily about aging. It should be about multiple chronic conditions. And certainly we're called the Aging Initiative because as we age, we get more likely to accumulate multiple chronic conditions, but multiple chronic conditions certainly affect people in early and middle life too. And we also think of aging as something that starts in utero. So aging is a process across the lifespan. And you do not have to be focused on an older adult population. We often get the question of people that are saying, I'm about to get my doctorate. Can I apply this year? Unfortunately, we do have to keep with the degree requirements, but would encourage you to keep us in mind for next year if you're about to get your doctorate and are interested in the program. Once you have the doctorate, apply after that. International researchers. So yes, we have had international researchers. However, there is still the requirement that you attend the in-person meeting, and we only have funding for domestic travel. So you would have to have a funding source to be able to get yourself internationally to that meeting. But assuming that you can come to that meeting and that you don't mind any time zone inconvenience that may be introduced by attending those required webinars and mentoring, we welcome international applications. And then the question that I've answered before, if you have applied before, please don't let it be a deterrent about applying again if you were not accepted in the past. Just know that many of the people who have participated in the program were not participating on their first try. And then there's on our website, you'll see other frequently asked questions, but next I think we can open it up to your questions at this time. And Leah, I think you're going to take the first couple.
Yes, so we have several questions that have been submitted. As a reminder, you can submit them in the question and answer panel. The first one is, I was wondering if basic scientists can participate in this program. And the answer is yes, that we're open to participation from scientists across all disciplines. We would definitely encourage you to apply. We like to have a good mix of expertise across the cohort to really balance perspectives. Next, we got a question about, it looks like it's this one in our host and panel chat. As an early investigator, I'm working on publishing my projects on MCC. Can we talk about unpublished data, or how should I approach this knowledge in my application? And the answer is yes, definitely. You can definitely describe your unpublished projects when you're answering your questions. There's no limitations when you're answering the prompts to those questions. So please do tell us about work that's in progress. The next question is, will the expenses to the meeting be covered? And with the exception that Heather identified for the international airfare, that yes, the domestic travel, the airfare, meals, and hotel will be covered for your travel to the in-person meeting. Okay. Are we getting a certificate of completion after the program or any continuing education units? We don't offer any continuing education, but we will give you a certificate of completion after your year participation in the MCCs program.
And I will add to that we do encourage the scholars to put it on their CVs, bio sketches as a selective program that you participated in.
Okay, next. In our short responses, should we talk only about how our research impacts individuals living with MCCs? Or should we also talk about our research that has implications for aging? My research is more focused on aging and cardiovascular disease and is moving into MCCs. So how would you recommend I apply? Let's see. Heather, what do you think? That's definitely, we're looking for people that are doing that, I would say.
Yeah, I would say it will be important in your application to talk about the part about you're moving into MCC. So I would say highlight that you've done work and you have expertise that's certainly relevant to MCC, both the aging and the cardiovascular disease. But it'll be important to not stop there, but to sort of make it very clear that you are planning a shift in your research and emphasis that would involve MCCs and kind of specifically maybe how you would what questions you might have about multiple chronic conditions.
And we have a similar question about a primary focus on heart failure. And I think the answer would be the same, is to describe your research you're doing now, and then the relevance of adding MCCs to that with a similar balance. Something a little different. Someone's asking how they might balance the answers to the question. So knowing that these are being asked, we have multiple reviewers. So we have scientific reviewers and we have our IP4 reviewers. So how can we successfully answer the questions in a way that's appropriate for both? And what do the reviewers with lived experience find helpful in reading the applications? I'll start that and then I will pass it off to Rosie and Janice. I think focusing your scientific answers on the questions that are, is it 1 and 3? I think, Heather, that are focused on your goals and your experience, but the question for the impact on patients, I would focus that on the lay audience for your answer to the impact on patients and families. Rosie and Janice, what would you like to add on what do you find helpful?
I would suggest that if they had a story about how they impacted the life of a lived experience person, that might be helpful, especially how their research is impacting the lives of people living with multiple chronic conditions, or even like if you're doing something like heart failure, but you want to look at all the patients with heart failure, and many times they have other conditions. And that might be the way that you could move into that. So, sharing the stories of patients that you've already worked with, or patients that you might have seen or know about that you could help them. I'm going to pass it off to Janice.
Yes, thank you, Rosie. And I agree that is a great way to look at it, especially if you have a story and you perhaps haven't worked directly one-on-one. Many of the emerging scholars or the MCCs have not worked directly with patient and family care partners. And so, thinking about how you might be able to incorporate them into your project and what importance or impact that it might have on them is the way you frame it. But there's a specific 1 or 2 questions, right, that are specifically around working with patient and family care partners. And so sometimes people have been very experienced in this, and it's not always true, though. I mean, it's more on the other side. What I want to mention is you might, like for heart failure or cardiovascular disease, looking at the individuals, mentioning something about the social risks or social drivers of health and how that impacts it is very patient-centered. And so that might be one way to look at it. Thank you.
Reggie, do you have a thought?
I think I'll just second what you said and what Janice said. Taking in the consideration of your contribution from social drivers in your communities with your own personal story that you may have would be of high value. Uh, you know, we're here to assess and to amplify the voice of the patient. And you are a patient, and, and maybe not at the age that we are, but your experience would be of high value. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. I think
I was gonna also maybe just add and it gets to also, I think, the next question about is this program a good fit for a basic scientist? And I think the way to think about that is we would love to incorporate the sort of experiences and expertise of a basic scientist, and we, as long as a basic scientist, you're sort of open to and interested in how your science could be informed by, number one, people who mostly you will mostly in your peer group and cadre be interacting with peers that probably don't do basic science. Now, my work, I'm going to say, is quite translational. I do a lot of biomarkers and that, but not a wet lab. So if you're interested in sort of translational research and meeting people who are going to be primarily clinical researchers and dealing with human data, then this could be a great program if you're sort of open to building those bridges. You, on the other hand, you will probably be in the minority as a basic scientist in the cadre. We would welcome including that perspective and expertise, but you just have to make sure that this is something that you're looking for. And then I would say similarly, I actually think that there are a lot of ways that basic science can benefit from IP4 perspectives and inclusion. And it will be important to convey that really clearly in your application, that you see that, you're open to it, you're wanting to do that, and maybe make it very clear, as was kind of discussed, some of the ways that you're seeing the basic science that you're doing, how you imagine, and it may not be that it will happen next year or the next year, but how down the line it impacts the lives of real patients and participants that are aging and developing multiple chronic conditions.
I
The
have
final
a,
thing, oh, sorry.
What?
There was just one final thing I wanted to say because it kind of came up a little bit. Sometimes I think something that we see in the applications that I would just sort of caution the group who's taken the time to be on the webinar and put together the strongest application possible. Sometimes like people will say, well, I studied this index condition, lung cancer or heart failure or whatever it is, and it's most common in people who are aging and have multiple chronic conditions, and kind of end of story. Make sure that you make it clear how the study of aging or multiple chronic conditions is what you really want to focus on within your index condition, rather than just that all the patients that you treat in your oncology clinic tend to be older and have multiple chronic conditions. Because from the point of view of aging researchers, we might say, well, all the patients that we see have a heart, and therefore we think the NHLBI should fund all the work that we do. And of course, it doesn't work that way, because I'm not focused on their heart when I'm seeing them, even though, yes, of course, they all have a heart. So just make sure that you kind of make that argument or connection that, yes, the people you're seeing have multiple chronic conditions and aging. What research questions are you going to drive about that?
Yeah, I just wanted to give an example on basic science. Thank you very much, Heather, for extrapolating on that. I had read somewhere in, I don't know if it was, anyway, one of the social media platforms, that somebody was studying adhesions at the basic level. And it turned out I'm working with the research at that university. I contacted him. I said, hey, can you contact them? Because, I suffer from this, and this is a big issue and adds to multiple chronic conditions, as a matter of fact. And he contacted them, and they wrote back to me and they said, well, our work is really on, it's lab. It's, 1, 2, we're in the basic science right now. And I said, but it's important to actually taken the patient partner, family care partner voice at this point, how adhesions have impacted their lives and how it affects their health care. But they said, well, we'll contact you later when we get into the human studies, right? So that what I'm trying to say is that you can apply it, something like that, to directly to what you're doing, because how it could be done, right? Thank you.
I agree completely with Janice on this, that taking it to the next level, or Heather, what you said, taking it to the next level, make sure that you just don't say, I treat the heart, but there's chronic multiple conditions. The next question is about the IP4 and community involvement and advisory councils. And if you're involved with a community advisory council, that is, community stakeholders are very important to us as the IP4 members, and many of us, belong to not only IP4, but we also might belong to a community stakeholder group. I have, belong to several of them because of the fact that, stakeholders are looking at things from different points of view. So I think that if you're involved in that, and now how are you going to take this to the next level, that information that you've gained from those community advisory councils is, I think, how you're going to that's how I would write that up if I were you. Janice, maybe you might have a different idea.
I'd agree 100% with Rosie. I believe almost every single one of us on the IP4 is involved with an advisory council of some sort. And I'm on maybe 3 research advisory related councils, some national, some local focused. But still in, national studies. So your work there, you've definitely worked with individuals. So the community, we're not leaving out community, because community advisory boards are patients generally and care partners. So yes, your work there is that's very high level actually for many of them that we see here as far as the involvement. So thank you for offering that information.
And also the social determinants of health are often looked at through community levels. And I think, Reggie, you might have something to say about that, because I think you belong to some community advisory councils.
Yes, I belong to quite a few actually. But I also want to make a notation in the chat that Ollie just dropped an application link. We definitely want you to fill that out and submit your work as needed. But the involvement of getting from a community standpoint and national organizations are extremely valuable in all regard. We want the expertise that you have the ability to give us. And, we are very much committed to high level of excellence. So we'd be looking forward to your applications. Back to you, Heather.
I don't see any more open questions. Do you, Heather?
No, I don't. So I think we can probably wrap up.
Okay, so I'd just like to thank all of you for attending today's webinar. As we said, the recording for this webinar will be posted soon on the Aging Initiative website. Later today, you'll be prompted to complete a very brief survey regarding any thoughts or opinions you had about today's webinar. We'd appreciate it if you could take a minute to fill that out. Again, thanks to everyone. Thank you to our IP4 panel attendees, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.